This is the happy hour, the virtual happy hour experience with the Drunken Grape. And I have a tremendous host today. I can't speak enough accolades about this man. He has a movement that's over 3.5 years old. Smiles Project Louisville. I hope I got that right, Michael. And of course, this stems from a child of his with special needs. I can relate to this having a cousin with this, with Down syndrome, a nonverbal daughter that he has had an enormous amount of responsibility to raise, along with 3 other children. And with this, I mean, this man is incredible. He's inspired a global movement that has really brought attention to random acts of kindness, goodwill to humanity, and love. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce our superstar today, Extraordinary Drinks with Extraordinary People with your host, Rob. This is the great Michael Ray. Michael, how you doing, my friend?
Dude, I'm blown away, man. I'm going to have a dram of some bourbon at that
Excellent.
Beautiful introduction.
Hey, you're welcome, man. Listen,
Thank you for those kind words.
We'll get to that drink in a minute. I mean, they're fabulous beverages to have, but what got you really rolling into this? Because I have a good friend who contends with a daughter with Down syndrome, and I know the challenges that go through this. She is a single mother. I believe you're a single father. This is an enormous amount of responsibility, but you didn't let this deter you. You cranked this. I mean, you had a job. If I'm not mistaken here, you have an extensive mortgage broker background. So that in itself, you know, we're coming into the age of the boomer real estate. That is an intensive career. And to raise 3 other children and then to have a child afflicted, a Maddie Moo, afflicted with Down syndrome and nonverbal. You did a 180, and this is where I love having extraordinary people on this show. You launched this amazing movement, Smiles Project Louisville. And how did you get this all started? Because this is global now. I mean, I watch you on LinkedIn and you show up with random acts of kindness to homeless people with $50 gift cards. You hug random strangers who are having a bad day in places like Walmart that you run into on random. You know, you've interconnected with some real legends on this platform of LinkedIn that you really showcase a lot of things on. You have the great Brian Schulman. You've got Raquel Boris. You have Nancy Burrows, the whole clan, that clan, and then there's a whole bunch of others. So what did you do to get this initiative started? I mean, it is no easy feat to launch something like this.
You know, I mean, it isn't. Thank you again for all the kind words. It's really, if anyone who's a parent, it's the simplicity of what we take for granted in life when we hear those 3 simple words from our children, I love you. And again, as you stated, having Down syndrome doesn't necessarily mean you're nonverbal. Most, of those that have Down syndrome are verbal. But again, Maddie has only said maybe a total of 6 or 7 words. She's never put 2 words together. So that simplicity of hearing I love you from a child, as a parent, we take for granted, and never hearing that from my daughter as I went through my challenges in life. And that's what I often say, is finding the ability to smile, even though at times life gets hard. So as I went through my challenges and adversity, as whether it was personal or professional, the one constant I always had was the love from a little girl who couldn't say I love you. But I felt it differently. I felt it through, again, the simplicity of a smile. So as I'm evolving as a father and a man, I took that with an interaction with a complete stranger at a drive-through. Because as I left the office, again, 3.5 years ago, one morning to go get lunch, I was having a bad morning, and it's where we are in life at times with our emotions. But when I went through that drive-through and just that short interaction, I felt so uplifted from an absolute stranger. And truly, if you allow it then to marinate and reflect on it, I looked at it as, here I went through a lot, and I have this little girl who can't say I love you, But as strangers, we never know what someone else is going through.
This is true.
In life, as we have these very short interactions, whether they're verbal or nonverbal, as we pass so many people in our routines. So for me, it started by just taking pictures. And I was taking pictures with strangers all over Louisville, but I felt the joy in the simple act of intersecting with all of these strangers. And as I did that, again, as you have mentioned a couple of times, I take it as I had an epiphany. And I'm like, if I'm trying to make people smile through what I went through pictures, what would it look like if I did a random act of kindness to make someone smile? And that's really is how it evolved. It was that simple. But again, it's about doing it and then stepping out of your comfort zones and the willingness to share it with the world and how the world responds to the interactions that I have, with my daughter with Down syndrome, or how they see me treat absolute strangers or that are going through what I call the shit show of life at times. Because it is what it is. But it's how we perceive and look at it, in which, and again, as I've done so many of these now, I've probably done over 300, some probably meant more than others, depending where people were in life. And I'm not going to diminish any of them, but I won't forget, when I'm with a teacher who's battling colon cancer, and I sat there and said, we smile and try to make so many other people smile because life's hard. And for someone like you who's fighting for their life, but still choosing to understand that life is still good and smiling through adversity, that's where I'm trying to get people, is because when I went through my challenges, I didn't smile. I didn't appreciate still how good life is, regardless of our circumstances. And I think a lot of it for me just came back to the simplicity of the lessons that a nonverbal daughter taught me. And that is, she lives in infinite joy because she finds it through people, her family. And then I think once I started looking at life differently, in really bringing those people fully into my life, you find happiness. And I'm so fulfilled now just with the relationships. It's not about chasing happiness.
And that's profound. We live in a world where media is dark. You can turn on the television any day, and I shut off cable, thank God. But it's
right.
But it's just doom and gloom. It's COVID wave 25. It could be Afghanistan, which is going on right now.
Yeah.
If it's not that, it's an earthquake that just greased or killed, sadly, wiped out a whole society, killed thousands of people, and there's very little coverage on happiness and joy. And this world needs more happiness, love, and joy than ever, as far as I can recall it, in my near 50 years on this planet. Like, I look at it and go, wow, and to have people like you come along. I mean, you've got in LinkedIn and on social media, you have a whole myriad of coaches, and half of them you're wondering what they're coaching. Then you have a lot of people spamming content. They're in engagement pods. You don't know what they're spamming. It's just redundant.
Sure.
Then you have people who are real professionals and entrepreneurs making their message. I sort of fall in that bracket, but I like sharing some goodwill too. And I think you got to give back to the community. Then there's you that is on a mission, and you see this with a few people, and they do it really, really well. They're on a mission to really make a difference because they're taking their life circumstances and spinning it and making the world a far better place for everybody to engage in. It's like Russ Johns with the Pirate Radio or Pirate Broadcast we're talking about. I mean, he was my last guest, and what an awesome fellow. And, kindness is cool. Smiles are free. And you think about that. Both of you are doing so much to make a massive mark, and you've taken this platform and you've gone global.
It's hard to understand. But you know what? It's what I tell people when people talk negatively about social media. I immediately want to spin it, and I look at the level of positive impact that I have been able to have through social media. Again, when you talk about global, it is what it is, brother. I wouldn't be global if it wasn't for the ability to share my message and my work in my daughter and what I do, primarily on LinkedIn. It opens up a whole other world for us.
It does. It's you think back, we're old enough to remember this. Some of the viewers are maybe not be, but we live in a world of luxury today. In fact, Warren Buffett put it so succinctly. He said, I hope I got that word right, but he said,
you nailed it, man.
The world has more opportunity for you to do so many things today than ever before. If you got to remember, the billionaires in the 19th century didn't even have proper running showers. They had bathtubs, but they didn't have showers. They didn't have the dentistry and the access to medical equipment. They didn't have fingertip technology that could access all the information on the planet at a touch of a button. They didn't have the interactivity we have. And you think about what you're doing, and even what I'm doing with the Drunken Grape, virtual tasting parties. It's good luck doing that 20 years ago. If you go back 30 years ago, email was new.
No, and you're
Web
exactly
pages,
right. These platforms didn't exist.
They didn't exist. And this has revolutionized everything. And it's true for a lot of people, the naysayers of social media. Yeah, you've got issues with one platform in particular, I would say, which would be Facebook. But That's correct. Bulk of it is positive. You go on to TikTok, there's a kid riding a skateboard on TikTok, having a blast. And LinkedIn, you see a lot of positive messages, or you see a lot of good coaching and mentoring on business and career subjects. You turn on Instagram, it's photos of beautiful places and beautiful people and beautiful food everywhere, and what they're doing, short, cool little videos. Snapchat, the same thing. And if you really want to talk negativity, just turn on, CNN, Fox, CBC TV up here. We're in the middle of an election.
Exactly right.
So all it is this political barrage right now. And it's like, wow, can we just talk about something else and something just a lot more happy? And, shout out to local, at least like municipal media focuses on a lot more of the positivity within your locale.
You're exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. I think you have to get to the national and international stuff. And again, hate to single out Facebook, but those, and I guess, and I'm relatively new on Twitter, but those platforms can dig into the negative. And it again, I often say it's the Wizard of Oz effect, to where you can be behind the curtain and feel like at times you can say or do or operate anything that you want to, because we're not in front of other human beings. And, you mentioned something earlier, when you talk about, Russ and the power of kindness and smiles, I try to bring it back in its very simplest forms. And it's really, again, back to the roots and foundation of my relationship with Maddie. And that is her ability. She's like a dog. Because if you think about dogs, all they know how to do is love. And if you can find that place, and that's really how Maddie is hardwired. She doesn't have the ability to judge others. So if you can love, it does then make it easy, very easy, to be able to smile and do random acts of kindness and do those things for others, because it's not about anything in return. It's about who you are and wanting someone else in that simple act of just an expression of love. That's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, going back to my cousin, Dan, like a third cousin. I was 9. He was maybe in his early 20s, but he was like our protector. He was always hugging us. He was full of joy. Like I mentioned to you in the Zoom room at the beginning of the show, or just before the beginning of the show, how much strength a lot of people with Down syndrome have. It's uncanny. Like you mentioned, the will. I've seen the physicality. And because they're wired differently, and I would never use the word simple, because what we're discovering now is that I watched a whole program on Down syndrome. A lot of them are living regular lives. They can live into their late 60s, even their 70s now, with all the evolution of tech and medical science. They're getting degrees. They're going into careers. They're going into trades. They're launching businesses, and some of them are doing extraordinarily well. And this is a very promising future.
It is. And I think a lot of it is a generational thing, because historically, we wanted to, if it wasn't, to institutionalize the kids, we didn't give them any form of therapy, support, education. We just said that old term, they're just retarded.
Yeah.
And they have no future.
Yeah.
So then when you don't cultivate that, but now it seems like over the last probably 25, 30 years, we've poured into these kids and are realizing, their aptitudes, just like normal human beings, can be all over the place too. But yet if you do give them the tools, wow. I mean, I know many of Maddie's friends who graduated from high school, have gone on to college, who drive a car, or getting, again, they can be somewhat normal too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And cheers to that, my friend. I've got a Sauvignon Blanc here from New Zealand. I'm going to cheers you on the screen. That's awesome. Got a glass of bourbon. Happy hour, everybody. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. Make sure to share this video. This is great content. I'm going to have in the show notes and the commentary or the description of this video, Michael's contact information. Definitely reach out to him. Cheers to that.
Bottoms up, baby.
Cheers, man. We were talking about this earlier. I love Sauvignon Blanc because it's crisp. You get gooseberry and elderflower flavor notes, pear, apple, citrus notes.
So I have to ask you then, if you were on a deserted island and you could only, and you survived with just one bottle or one supply, what wine would it be?
Well, it'd probably be this one because, I have a whole range of wines I love, but if I'm lost on a hot deserted island, I'm assuming that I want something a little quenching and a little cold with a bit of zest to it. You're not getting that out of a full-bodied Cab Sauv. That'd be too weighty. It's like beer, too weighty, booze, too dehydrating. Something like this would be great. And as it is summertime, this accompanies a lot of white fish dishes, salads, light fruit plates. It's got nice acidity to it, which means it cuts into certain dishes. You could even have it with buttered chicken if you're not into Chardonnay and you want something a little more flavorful. And this part, the screw cap, New Zealand's invention. And this is when somebody saw a screw cap in the past, and this is a little bottle. A lot of things are turning into smaller trends and form factors because you can carry them around. They're even going into you can drink cans. We're talking about that too. But the screw cap, what it does is it's anaerobic. It really seals the product. And the problem with cork is obviously you get it from cork trees, predominantly in Spain and Portugal. Now, the supply of that's gradually running out. And the problem with cork in the past is if it was faulty, well, the product inside would get destroyed because it would oxidize over time. This seals it flawlessly. And, there was a misnomer that it was of lesser quality, but that is completely untrue. Some extremely expensive, high quality wines use screw cap. So what do you have there? You got bourbon, my friend, going on. I'm a huge fan.
I do. So 97% of the world's bourbon comes from my backyard in the great state of Kentucky. So
it today, I love that
I'm having a little bit of Eagle Rare, which is in my top 5, comes from Buffalo Trace. I tell people kind of the same way you just described, you don't have to spend a fortune to get really good bourbon, as in also really good wine. You can find them at really, really good prices. And this happens to be one of those that, as I enjoy most, if not all of my bourbons, is about drinking it full body, just neat, nothing, no water, no ice. I mean, to each their own. I won't deter from how you enjoy your beverage. But for me, I love the flavors of just enjoying it straight from the bottle.
Yeah, and it's a much better value buy for the price point over Scotch. Scotch can be just searingly much more expensive. I also find bourbon more approachable because you have more of those honeyed, you find those vanilla, coconut flavor inflections from the American white oak barrels, the charred barrels, and the cooperage sites that they make them from. Now, age it in,
where they'll age them in, Chardonnay barrels. Though it takes off a little bit of that bite. Has a touch of sweetness. I mean, there's some really good bourbons out there that they've done in some cab barrels with a new one called Bardstown Bourbon Company. Some really cool things.
That is really cool. And
Yeah.
the Scotch does the same thing. They use old sherry casks often.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is they often use old bourbon barrels because bourbon tends to use newer oak. So it's they will repurpose old bourbon barrels for Scotch production.
Well, and the one thing too with bourbon is you can never reuse the same barrel.
That's right.
They're all brand new. So but they end up, like you just said, they end up selling them off all over the world for other productions of other, alcoholic beverages. Yeah.
And Eagle Rare is awesome. I had that at the whiskey show. I've had that a few times here in Ottawa. They have a whiskey show, or did pre-COVID at the War Museum. And it was cool. You'd be drinking bourbon around tanks. I mean, it was kind of a funny ring to it. Felt like it was in the movie Lord of War with Nicolas Cage, where he's the arms dealer.
Oh, that's a good movie.
Definitely a good movie. But bourbon has a nice approachability, and obviously its industry really spiked because of the war with the British, the war for independence, and the rum trade was cut off on the Americans very quickly after that. I mean, you kick the empire out that real deal, they're certainly not going to be trading goods and services with you anymore.
No, of course.
So one thing that the States has a plentitude of a lot of things, but corn being one of them, because it has to be 51% at least as a maize or a corn mash. Corn.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's correct.
I'm a generalist on bourbon. I mean, you probably know more than me, drinking a lot about it. And, as a professional, and we are never shy away to saying that, because people are going to know tons about what they consume. It's like Zach Messler. I had him on episode 2 of this show, and that guy knows a boatload about bourbon. I mean, he could actually host a seminar on bourbon.
I mean, where it gets intricate is a lot more about the mash bill. And when you take some of these tours and they briefly talk about, different types of corns and how much corn or rye or what their consistency is. And then again, you take in how long they're aging it. It has to be at least 2 years. Eagle Rare here is 10. Right. But again, you think about at times how long that thing is set in a barrel. And one of the unique things too about Kentucky is, and I like to think my knowledge is probably somewhere in the middle. I know enough to be dangerous, but I'm not an expert. But we have an environment here to where when it ages, we have the really hot summers, but we also have cold weather in the winter, to where we do get to freezing. So the fluctuation of temperatures as these things in most cases, age 5, 7, 10 plus years, and with the area of the world, not just the US, but with the limestone that mixes as far as the water in that process makes it unique too.
Yeah, water definitely has a huge factor. Water, hard water, soft water. We see that beer styles, for instance. IPA will use a hard water style because you want mineralized water. Same with Kolsch, German lagered ale in Cologne, Germany.
You're right, yeah.
A lot of magnesium, calcium. Then you see soft water where traces of mineral content are at a minimum in Pilsners. Czech Pilsners, they use soft water to create that Czech Pils style.
Sure.
And it really has a huge inflection on the type of product or the end product that comes to be. Fortunately, the water is one of those things we can control a lot more of now, thanks to reverse osmosis, distillation. But in the past, if you weren't near fresh spring sources of spring water, you were in trouble. Good luck trying to run your brewery or distillery or winery. It just wasn't going to happen for you.
You're so right. Absolutely.
So, Michael, it's what's the best way they can reach out to you? It's through your email. I'm going to have the show notes, LinkedIn. I know you're very prolific on LinkedIn. You have a truly global audience. Your impact and reach is just staggering. I see the posts hit the tens of thousands routinely around every corner of this planet. And that's just a testament. I could see this going to the million mark. I'm not even kidding. I could see you're following 10xing in the next 2 to 3 years because it has momentum and it has gravity. And I think what you're doing is absolutely stellar. You are a blessing to humanity, my friend.
Once again, I try to embrace humility and, I love what I do, but I often tell people that I'm just like you. I'm just the dude that chose to create the change in his life and take those challenges and have seen the impact. And it really is, it's no different than what you're doing, just do it. And I
Just
tell
do it.
people, just do you. And, it's kind of that old Gary Vee approach, find what you're really, really passionate about, work the hell out of it and just keep doing it and doing it in some cases, just like right here off the simplicity of an iPhone. And that's where I do 99% of my work is just truly from a handheld device. So
incredible.
So I often tell people, just people will embrace you, go out and do it. But again, I'm in awestruck. I understand what I'm doing, but I also like to embrace that I'm just a dude that went through a lot, that chose to create change in his life and kind of found that foundation, from a little girl, and then just kept doing it. And, I guess too, it is that Gary Vee approach in which not worrying about the money, because I'm passionate about it. I love what I do. I've built amazing relationships with people on LinkedIn. When you ask how to get a hold of me, it's all right there. It's funny. At times I get truly overwhelmed with notifications, and in some cases get thousands a day. And people will send me a DM and I don't see it. And then I'm like, well, my email and phone number is right there on my profile.
I was guilty of that. So
and I never miss those things. So I tell people that if they're watching, on LinkedIn, is to reach out. And I do have people that randomly on a regular basis, do that, because again, I go back to the power of people. I got asked this question recently. I don't know if you know who Peter Clark is.
I do. He's a great guy.
So I was on his program, and again, I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but he asked me that question. He goes, "You love your life because," and it's the people in it. It's the people here. It's the people that, I've used LinkedIn differently because I have chosen, just like this, Rob, to build relationships with really good people that support each other in the messages we're trying to put out into the world. So I've looked at it that way. I've used it that way. I'm heavily involved. So, if people want to reach out to me, it is truly that simple of just going to my profile on LinkedIn and again, picking up the phone or texting me or going to my website, however they would choose to.
Listen, you've been awesome. We're wrapping things up here. You're truly an extraordinary individual. I'm having an extraordinary drink with. Again, extraordinary drinks with extraordinary people. This is the virtual happy hour experience with the Drunken Grape. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the key things I want to leave you with as we close this show is be the change you want to be in this world. You've been a terrific guest, Michael. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, have a terrific day. Much love from Rob and Michael from the Drunken Grape. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon.